In a moment or two, we'll be getting to meet our guest. But to better situate the conversation, let's take in this report. The Independent National Electoral Commission and resident electoral commissioners have been reviewing recent attacks on the Commission's facilities. INEC says these attacks are of aggression, if not tackled, may undermine the Commission's capacity to organize elections. Arise News correspondent Nisi Gabriel was there and turned in the following report.
The number of INEC offices burnt by hoodlums has risen to 24, mostly in the southeast, the latest in Ebonyi State. The Independent National Electoral Commission says the continuous attacks on the Commission's facilities may affect preparations for elections.
Surely these attacks are no longer freak events, but appear to be quite orchestrated and targeted at INEC. Clearly, these are acts of unjustifiable aggression which may undermine the Commission's capacity to organize elections and dent the nation's electoral process. The facilities of the Commission are there to serve the local communities for the most fundamental aspect of democratic governance, which is elections. Therefore, targeting such important national assets are repositories of election materials that took time and enormous resources to procure cannot be justified.
The Electoral Commission hopes the meeting with resident electoral commissioners can profile solutions on how best to protect INEC's facilities nationwide.
Today's meeting with RECs, who lead our offices in the states, will take briefings from across the country on threats to INEC facilities and deliberate on how best to protect them.
But the Commission is not deterred, as it is prepared to commence the continuous voters registration.
That the Commission has virtually completed necessary preparations for the resumption of the continuous voter registration, commencing on the 28th of June 2021. What is left is to finalize the newly established polling units in order to update our registration software to make them available to registrants.
It is hoped that decisions reached at the end of this meeting will form an input into next week's meeting with security agencies on how to identify and deal with the perpetrators of the attacks. Nisi Gabriel, Arise News.
More than 20 state and regional offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission have in the past 2 months been burnt down across the Federation by yet-to-be-identified assailants. The pattern has fundamentally been the same, mainly break-ins and pillaging of sensitive polling materials or completely burning down the whole building. Who is behind this crime and deliberate undermining of the electoral process and democracy? What is INEC doing about it? And is there a plan B? Joining us now from Arise Abuja studio for a conversation is Dr. Festus Okoye, INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dr. Okoye. Thank you for joining us. Well, could you paint for us a picture of the damage that has been done so far? We're told about 23 offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission have been attacked, by arsonists and also by vandals and all kinds of unknown, as we say in Nigeria, criminal elements. What's the extent of the damage? Do you have any information as to who may be behind these attacks? What is the spread in terms of geography of these attacks? And, what steps, if I may add that, are you taking to make sure that the fears that have been raised by the INEC chairman do not come to pass?
As of today, no individual, no group, and no organization has claimed responsibility for this spate of attacks in our offices across the Federation. And we are not even sure, and we are not aware whether these attacks have political undertones or underpinning, whether they are ideologically motivated, and whether they are just meant purposely to spread fear amongst the staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission and prevent us from proceeding with our electoral activities. Now, you see, some of these things, you can really segregate them. There were a few of the incidents that were internal to the commission, resulting from maybe electrical challenges and so on. there were also some of the burnings and vandalization that took place during the NSAS protest. In some of these vandalizations and some of these destructions during the NSAS protest, some of the communities where these attacks took place have even volunteered to repair the offices of the commission. And I think that is a very, very commendable thing. But the 7 attacks that we witnessed in less than 3 weeks, especially in Abia State and in Ebonyi State and Akwa Ibom, are giving us a very, very serious concern relating to what the attacks are all about. This is because we have just finished our expansion of voter access to polling units, where our local government offices, from where we stage our activities, we are completely attacked, burnt and vandalized. And we are beginning to, by the 28th of June, we are going to commence the continuous voters registration exercise. And it is from these offices that we are going to carry out these activities. So when you attack these offices and burn them down, the implication is that you want to prevent us from even doing a continuous voters registration exercise and also from proceeding with the 2023 preparations for the 2023 elections. Some of the equipment the Commission uses are not procured off the shelf. Some of these things are ordered from outside the country. There has to be budgeting, there has to be appropriation. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, production has slowed down in some of these advanced countries. So it's going to take the Commission a while to replace some of these things. And that was the reason why we summoned all our resident electoral commissioners from all the states of the Federation for us to deliberate and try to put together some of these attacks and provide solutions on how we are going to tackle both the internal issues and the external issues with the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security.
When you say it will take a while to order some of the things that have been damaged, how long do you mean? Is it possible that you can quickly recoup? Can you give us a time scale? And who are these people, these groups that are trying to disenfranchise Nigerians? Is there any lead so far?
Well, as of today, there is no lead because no individual has been arrested and no group has claimed responsibility, and we are not aware that any individual has been arrested. So it is very, very difficult for us to really situate what is going on. Some of the equipment we use, some of the materials we use are sensitive and non-sensitive materials. For instance, our smart card readers, it will take between 6 months and 1 year to order and get these smart card readers because some of these smart card readers are expensive. Moreover, we are trying to import a new generation registration software and equipment with which to begin the voters registration exercise. In these places where offices have been burnt, there's a possibility that we may not even find an office to rent in some of these local governments because some of the offices, some of the land in which these offices were built were donated by the local communities. So if these offices have been raised down and we are supposed to employ thousands of individuals to assist us with this voters registration exercise, they cannot fly in the air, they cannot be in the air and doing this registration. So we are really, really worried because we want to prepare and prepare well, and we want to start some of our activities within our own timelines so that we don't get into the 2023 elections not well prepared.
I mean, when I hear this, I get shocked. Was there any security arrangement for these offices? Because it's not today we've had cases of INEC property being burned, and we never get anybody that has done this. Even if it's a camera somewhere, sees to pick the faces of those people, we never get anything. And INEC is just so quick to move on. So is it that we just build offices and there's no contingency planning for security or anything, any technology plan? Because I don't get the picture. And another question I would like to ask is, if we know that there's a trend of burning INEC offices, is it a must that these materials must be stored in these local government areas? Can't we look for probably the Central Bank of Nigeria's vaults? Because it's not just in the last 2019 electoral cycle, offices were burnt. And it just looks as though INEC keeps moving on from all of this.
Well, I quite appreciate what you are saying. Now, you see, the Commission has offices in the 774 local government areas of the country. And in most of these offices, we have local security guards who are looking after some of these offices. And some of them are not armed. Once in a while, we have the police or the civil defense giving some form of a security cover to some of these offices. At our INEC headquarters in the States, we have security, our own security, guarding some of these offices. And then the police and sometimes the civil defense are also providing some level of security. So sometimes when these attacks occur, that occur midnight, and some of our security guards at the local governments are completely overwhelmed. And before help comes, the damage has already been done. So it's not as if we are moving on. Some of the materials we use at the local governments, like voting cubicles, like ballot boxes, like office equipment, and so on and so forth, you cannot begin to move these things to the central bank. Yes, there are a few things we have at the central bank, but we cannot move all our facilities to the central bank. That means that work at the local governments will completely stop. Work at our state offices will completely stop, because some of these things, we need them for everyday operations. And we've just finished your referencing of all the polling units in Nigeria and the newly and the voting points and voting point settlements that have been converted into full-fledged polling units and relocated. So we need some of this equipment and staff at the base level for us to carry out our activities. But we are strategizing. There's a possibility that we are going to audit some of the equipments we are going to leave at the base level, and the ones that we are going to move away from those areas.
Okay, Dr. Okoye, let's take a quick commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still with us, Dr. Festus Okoye, National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education with the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, INEC. Dr. Okoye, thank you for staying with us. Well, you've painted a very disturbing picture. Now, your offices, your equipment, data, all of that being destroyed by persons that are not yet that have not yet been identified. I think something else to worry about is the fact that in some parts of the country, non-state actors are saying that, in fact, they will not allow the 2023 election to take place, particularly in the Southwest, where you have some groups led by Chief Sunday Adeyemo saying that there will be no elections in the Southwest. You can also imagine what the response from IPOB has also been from the Southeast. Now, so it looks like this is like a dress rehearsal, what we've been talking about for 2023. Now, what strategy do you have as an organization to make sure that in spite of these challenges, elections still take place? Are you engaging with the security agencies? Has there been a formal report to the federal government about the challenges that you are facing? What steps are we taking to make sure that the 2023 process is not derailed? Because if it is derailed, you then have a situation whereby the present government can stay for an additional 6 months and all the implications of that. What's your take?
Well, you know, the mandate of the commission is to organize, undertake, and supervise elections. Part of our mandate is also to register all those who are eligible to be registered as voters, and also to register political parties that satisfy the constitutional threshold for being registered. And that is what we are concentrating on. But we also need a very good and conducive atmosphere to carry out this mandate given to us by the Constitution. And based on that, and based on this spate of attacks, and this organized and orchestrated destruction and vandalization of our offices, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission has convened a meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security for Monday for us to put heads together and deliberate on some of these threats to the conduct of the 2023 general election, and also the conduct of some of the off-season governorship elections we have. Because, as you know, on the 6th of November this year, we are going to conduct the Anambra governorship election, and thereafter we have the Ekiti and Osun governorship elections before we move to the 2023 general elections. So, one, we want to discuss with the security agencies, we want to harvest all the challenges we have in all the states, present it to them, and then sit down with them and look at the strategies of, one, protecting our state offices and our local government offices and some of our facilities and equipment. Also, secondly, to map out strategies of making sure that the continuous voters registration exercise that we are about to embark upon is successful and not disrupted in any state of the federation or in any local government. And I'm confident that our interaction with the security agencies and the critical stakeholders will go a long way in giving us a pathway on how to proceed with our voters registration exercise and the 2023 general election. But more importantly, you see, the local government offices, the host communities must see themselves as the owners and custodians of these offices. Over 80% of the staff working in our local government offices are from the surrounding communities in those local governments. So when these offices are burned down, the implication is that you are trying to lay off some of the critical staff that are from those communities. And I think, so the communities must take some level of responsibility in terms of protecting these offices. And it is also important for traditional rulers, for religious leaders, for civil society groups and organizations, and for critical stakeholders to speak up in relation to some of these attacks and vandalization of critical national assets and symbols of our democracy. Because we have chosen to live by the tenets of democracy, and if there's a disruption in terms of these security challenges we are having, and then you add constitutional crisis to it, it will be very, very disastrous. And I think that nobody should go that direction. So that is why, despite all these attacks, we are resolved and we are confident that we can proceed with our electoral activities, proceed with with the voters registration exercise and all other activities mapped out, and then hope and pray that the security agencies and all the political leaders, religious leaders, and civil society groups and organizations will assist in lowering the current tension in the country so that we can have a very conducive atmosphere for electoral activities to proceed.
Being an employer of labor and an integral part of the national fabric cannot be overstressed. I want to ask you now for your perspective on a protest that happened yesterday when members of a civil society organization protested saying that the National Assembly has failed to pass the Electoral Act, the Amendment Act, months after public hearing. What is this delay about? They feel that their attempts to frustrate the 2023 elections. You might recall a few weeks ago, Governor Wike made a similar accusation. What is your take?
Well, you know, as a commission, we operate on the basis of the existing law. So all our preparations relating to the off-season elections and also relating to the preparations for the 2023 elections are based on the existing constitutional framework and also the existing Electoral Act. But the commission was part of the technical committee that worked on these present amendments that are before the National Assembly. Because the whole thing was to repeal the existing Electoral Act and then enact a new Electoral Act that encompasses all the previous amendments that have been made so that we have all of them in one document. So the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission has also appealed to the National Assembly to expedite action on the electoral legal framework so that at least a year before the elections, we should have a clean electoral legal framework to work with. If we don't have it within a period of at least a year before the elections, it's going to distort some of our plans unless some of the provisions will have a time frame within which they will come into force. But I think that there are very innovative, creative, and progressive amendments that have been made to the electoral legal framework, and it will be very good if the National Assembly can expedite work on it so that we can have it way ahead of the 2023 general election.
All right, can you assure me that despite all of this that has happened, your Anambra elections, by-elections coming up at Sebongeri will be top-notch?
Well, we're already preparing for these by-elections. In fact, in actual fact, we have a by-election in Sebongeri state constituency in Kaduna State. We have election in Gwaram Federal Constituency of Jigawa State. And then there's a federal constituency election that we're expecting, but the National Assembly has not declared that vacancy, one in Plateau and also one in Lere Federal Constituency in Kaduna State. We are preparing for these elections, and we are not turning back. This commission has the courage to proceed with its electoral activities, and we're also going to continue to work with the security agencies to make sure that the voters are protected, that our staff are protected, and that all our equipment are protected.
How about Anambra elections?
We are moving ahead with Anambra. We are moving ahead with the Anambra election, and you see the issue about these elections. Our elections are constitutionally circumscribed. The lawmakers have given us the time frame within which to conduct governorship elections. The moment you are unable to conduct governorship elections, there's a problem. This is because the Constitution also says that if we are unable to conduct a governorship election, that the Speaker of the State Assembly will take over and operate for the unexpired residue of the term of office. But the term of office is 4 years, and after 4 years, the governor must leave. After 4 years, after the expiration of that particular 4 years, the Speaker can no longer act. So the implication is that if you're unable to conduct it, you are now moving towards a state of emergency in which the doctrine of necessity will come into force, and we don't want that.
On that note, Dr. Festus Okoye, thank you very much indeed. We wish you all the best, and we hope that the situation will improve.